שלום לכם ושבוע טוב. השבוע בעצם אנחנו מתחילים דבר חדש. הדבר חדש זה להביא לכם זרמים אחרים של היהדות, בקיצור. אז בואו נתחיל עכשיו עם רבי ג'ניפר. Hello, Rabbi Jennifer, from, I guess, the Masorti movement.
Can, yes.
You feel free,
Either one. I'll go
feel
back
free
and forth.
to speak Hebrew anytime you want.
Yes, I work with the Masorti movement in Israel, specifically.
Okay.
But I work to raise awareness of it here and build the connection between the conservative movement here, which is our affiliated movement in North America, and our kihilot and our movement in Israel.
So, okay, so here it's called the Masorti.
Here in Canada, it would be called conservative. So if you went to a conservative synagogue,
okay, it's Masorti.
It's the same thing. It would be Masorti.
Okay, so for those of us that are not sure, what would a Masorti mean?
So a Masorti synagogue is...
We know what Dati, we know what Haredi, we know what Chiloni, but let's find out what Masorti.
So it's a combination of a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So Masorti would mean that we look at the halacha, and that is important to us. It's our foundation. We don't disregard it. So if you're going to a Masorti synagogue and you want to be Masorti, you're going to be Shomer Shabbat. Not that obviously not all our congregants are, just like if you go to an Orthodox synagogue, not everyone follows everything, but the ideals, Shomer Shabbat, Shomer Kashrut, the Chagim, the Tefillot, all of that are going to be Masorti traditional.
Because see, I thought the Masorti, they did the Chagim, they did a Shabbat candle, but they don't necessarily kept Shabbat. I mean, that's what, otherwise you would be Orthodox, you would be Dati.
Right. So I would say that if you look at someone who is an observant Masorti Jew, you're not going to see a significant difference in observance.
Okay.
You're going to see, if you walk into my home on Shabbat, there are going to be candles, there's going to be a meal on the table, the food is all kosher, our house is Shomer Shabbat.
Well, if you walk into my house, it would be the same thing on Shabbat. But that doesn't mean that on Saturday that I'm not going to get in my car and drive.
So even Shabbat afternoon, I'm not going to get in my car and drive. I'm going to have lunch in the crock pot, heat it up for when I come home from synagogue.
It's more like it's more than the team.
You're going to see, on the outside it looks dati. But a lot of it's how we think about things.
Sure.
So you're going to see a
because
change.
Looking at you, I have to say it, you don't look like a datiya.
No, I don't look like what you might expect if you see that.
Right.
And some of my favorite moments are when I'm sitting with friends who have other people over who are more dati, or who consider themselves more dati, and they look at me and they say, "But you don't look from."
Yeah.
But oh wow, you're very from. It's very surprising to them that I would pray and that I keep kosher and that I keep Shabbat. So it's really
they don't see the
part.
We
think about. They don't see the part. They just see the outside. They see, oh, I'm not in a skirt, or I'm not covering my hair, or I'm wearing short sleeves, and that doesn't fit the image they expect.
Yeah.
But on the way we think about things, so it's a combination of the halacha and our traditions with modern life.
I like that. Okay.
You will see. I'm sure there are women who prefer to wear skirts.
In the old days, the men wore the skirts.
Right, they wore robes or kilts. I don't know. So you're going to see people who dress like anyone else on the street. Now, they may dress more modestly. You're not going to see me on the beach in a bikini, but I will be but I'm comfortable wearing a bathing suit and going to a mixed beach. You're going to see changes like an egalitarian service in most of our synagogues. Certainly all of our synagogues in Israel are fully egalitarian. There are women rabbis, women wear talit, tefillin, they're involved in every aspect.
That's conservative?
That's conservative.
See, I thought that was the reform. I'm getting really confused. I thought that was the reform.
So reform, I'll give you a really quick...
a woman rabbi.
Right.
Usually the conservative
So I'll give you a really quick primer on all three.
Please, enlighten us.
Orthodox Judaism comes along at some point and says, we can interpret, but we need to stick to what we've been doing. We can't change what we've been doing.
Right.
Reform Judaism said, we are a modern movement, and it's up to individual freedoms with the idea of emancipation. Individuals can make a choice, and they should make a choice through knowledge. They should be knowledgeable about what Judaism means. You know, if you just reject kashrut, but you know nothing about it, it's not really making a choice.
Yeah.
So you learn and you make your decisions according to that knowledge. And maybe you keep kosher, maybe you don't. Maybe you put on tefillin, maybe you don't. And that's all in individual choice. Conservative says, no, the halakha is still binding. Jewish law is absolutely binding, but how we interpret it is important. So if we're talking about the reason that women can't read Torah or can't lead services, so the reason women can't read Torah is in the Talmud as because of, it might be an embarrassment to the congregation. Because of
is that an interpretation?
Kibbutz Tzibur. No, it says because of Kibbutz Tzibur, women don't read Torah. So what does that mean? There's no explanation in the Talmud. So we have to interpret that according to our modern sensibilities. Well, if a woman got up and read Torah in the 6th century, it might embarrass people because they would think that a woman's reading, there must be no man who's able to read. But nowadays, you know, if I get up and read Torah, my father is proud. Yeah. You know, when my daughter read Torah for her bat mitzvah, my husband and I stood there beaming. You know, he's excited to teach his daughter. Yeah. And in our family, my husband and my daughter are lefties, and my sons and I are righties, so I taught them to put on their tefillin, and my husband taught our daughter to put on her tefillin. Yeah. And it's not something that's an embarrassment. No, it's not something that's going to change that. So that's a change. Women's roles and women's positions in our society are so different.
It's changing, yeah.
And so we need to now adapt to that. Just like our clothing should still be modest. I mean, if you saw some of the outfits at the Oscars, I wouldn't say that they're particularly modest. But some are better.
Yeah, I could tell you that as a woman, I believe a woman is so much more sexier when she doesn't have to show all her parts.
I agree.
Let the other, the other one use their imagination. You don't
leave something for later.
Yes, you don't have to.
But you don't have to show
I think they're so much more classier and sexier when they are. I'm not saying they have to cover from head to toe, but
absolutely
a little bit modesty. So
I would say that falls into our interpretation of what we should be doing. All right. So counting in a minyan. Well, there's issues about whether women are obligated to pray, not obligated to pray. Right. Can you put on tefillin? Can't you put on tefillin? Women were freed from those obligations, but not if you were freed from the obligation. That means that at one time we must have had an obligation. Right. So I started putting on tefillin when I was I think I was about 19, maybe 18, 19 years old. And it was because I was working for USY and I was staffing, and a boy came over to me and said, "Can you help me with these?" He's holding them and the straps are all over the place. And I started to help him. First I pulled out the Shema and I looked at it, and it says mezuzah, and then it says tefillin, and it doesn't say mezuzah for everybody and tefillin for the men. And I suddenly went, oh my God. And so that's how I got interested.
Is it assumed that by men in 12th centuries that women were just not to be participant? Is it because of the way our women's role were in those days?
Well, I would say absolutely. I mean, I can't go back in time and say, but yes, I think a lot of it is that we're going to assume that. Yeah. When I grew up, when I was born, and I was growing up in the 70s, most babies were bottle fed in the U.S. And so that was a different pull on your time as a mother than even nowadays, where we're returning to most babies being breastfed. So it changes. When I had my 3 children, their demand on me was different than their demand on my husband. And even if you're bottle feeding, the demands are different. Even if you try and have equal roles in the house, demands are different. And so you need to know what you can do.
To be honest with you, I don't know where this equal in the house came from, because I don't want to be equal. There's certain things that I cannot do.
It's not
I
equal
want
in
my
my
husband
house.
to do.
I want my husband to do things, and I'll tell.
Yeah.
Some of those things are housework. You know, each family divides up the way it works for that family and for that couple. I do the laundry. My husband does the floors. I don't want to do the floors, and he doesn't want to do the laundry.
Whatever works for you.
If he can get out of it, he doesn't want to do it. That's fine.
Whatever.
So that's what works.
Yeah.
But
it's a partnership.
Right. But that's part of our reinterpretation of what our roles in the marriage are supposed to be. So Masorti works the same way. What's our role in the synagogue? What's a woman's role in the synagogue? What can it be? So you'll see more women wearing talitot mostly. Tefillin less so, but it's becoming more common.
Really?
We need, it's really about role models.
How, let's go on the other side. How does the, Orthodox community react to, I'm listening to you now. And I grew up differently, but I think it's great. So how do they accept or not accept? We know they don't accept, but how do they react?
So my experience in Canada has been mostly positive. You know, certainly the younger rabbis, Orthodox rabbis, I think there's a professional understanding. We're all kind of here for the same purpose. What we really want to do is connect Jews to Judaism.
Yeah.
And we want them to find something special in Judaism, and so we can work together. So the reaction is positive.
We want them to stay within Judaism.
Absolutely.
We don't want them to leave. We don't want our youngsters,
But there are certainly those who are threatened by it, and people who are uncomfortable. In Israel, it's harder. The Masorti movement has been making amazing strides, and the greater the strides, the more the pushback from the Orthodox establishment.
Because they control,
right.
a lot of...
There's a lot of money involved.
Yeah.
There's a lot of power in terms of positions involved. For us, we say it's a really big deal that we have someone like David Breakstone, who's the executive vice president at the World Zionist Organization, and is a Masorti Jew, an involved, committed public out there Masorti Jew. That's a big deal, because that affects funding. And this year's a Congress. The World Zionist Congress is coming up, and how funding is going to be divided up is going to be determined by the various communities around the world and in Israel, and who's there at the table. But it's still,
at the end of the day, the governing body in Israel, the Orthodox community, is the one that governs the rest of us. And
absolutely.
What I'm saying is, for instance, when it comes to get.
Absolutely.
You can't choose which way you're going.
No, you can't.
Even though there's a lot of movement that are changing now.
Right. Well, I think that on the one hand, the fact that things are changing is because Masorti and the Reform movement are really pushing hard and are growing in Israel. And people are finding places in these communities. But I think the pushback is because we are growing, because we are making such strides. It's a sign that, well, wait a minute, you're going too far for us. And so while the experience here has been very positive, we've also had more years of interaction between the communities. And we'll have to see what's going to be in Israel.
But even here, it's still the same. And when you come to the, I keep coming back to the get, because that's a major,
well, we have a Beit Din as well.
Right.
So the conservative movement has a Beit Din, and we have both regional Beit Din in
Canada.
We have one in Canada. Unfortunately, Rabbi Saltzman, who was our Masader Gitin, recently passed away. But you can go to the conservative movement.
But it's not recognized in Israel.
It's not recognized in Israel.
It's not recognized. So
it's not recognized in Israel, that's correct.
So it's a problem.
But many Orthodox rabbis are not recognized in Israel.
Really?
So you have to be not just Orthodox, but you have to be the right Orthodox to fit in with their community. So it used to be, I would say, when I still speak to conversion students, and I would say, look, you need to understand, if you're going to convert through the conservative movement, when we have a wonderful class here in Toronto, we have classes in Israel.
If you don't do it the Orthodox way, the conversion is not recognized.
You can make aliyah under the law of return, but if you want to get married, it's going to be a problem. And that's something that right now we can't fight in the government, but we can fight through the Jewish agency, and we fight through the the WZO, and they have power to influence the government. And
so
we
do
hope for
it.
changes.
Move on.
We're working.
Move. There's, you know what? There's so many girls here because I'm looking at I keep going back to the
the agunot.
There's so many here, never mind in Israel. Here, that is horrible. I'm sorry, it's horrible what they have to go through, and some of them are still agunot.
Yes, so there are, and what's the most frustrating about it is there are halachic methods to dissolve a marriage without the husband's consent, and the conservative B'tei Din will do it. There are a few Orthodox B'tei Din that will do it in the United States.
There's a new one, yes.
But
that's for another show.
They get pushback also from the Orthodox. Even though it's Orthodox, they also get pushback from their own community. Why are you doing this? And it's not a new thing. That method goes back to the Talmud. So why aren't we making use of it? But that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other. But I love this idea of the Masorti. But see, I didn't know that the Masorti actually worked. They kept Shabbat, so I wonder what if the rest of us that do Shabbat, do the Chagim, but drive on Shabbat. And they're like, well, we're not Reformed, we're not Masorti. Where are we?
Unfortunately, we often get described just like that. We're not Orthodox, we're not Reformed, we're somewhere in the middle.
Where are we?
And it's because the conservative movement initially started out of the reform movement. It was, we want more. We want to assimilate, not fully, we want to maintain our Judaism, but we want to assimilate. And then the feeling was the reform movement went too far and they pushed back, they said, okay, we're going back. And that's why initially it was called the conservative movement, because they were conserving the Jewish values. Yeah. And that's why in Israel we chose the word Masorti to say we are traditional, we care about all of these things. But again, what the movement says and what are the ideals, and this is across the board, whether the ideals are not always what every single one of our congregants is going to do. I know that on Shabbat most of our congregants drive to the Pride of Israel, right? I know, but wherever you are, people are driving.
I look at it this way. I mean, when the Torah was written and when the law was brought down, and they said, for the seventh day, you just relax and. But today, to drive a car, is not a big deal. I don't have to work hard. Right. It's enjoyment. I mean, in those days, they had to get, the horse needed the rest.
Say, you're not supposed to do laundry during Chol HaMoed.
I don't do
and
the laundry.
And I would say, okay, fine, laundry. When that was made,
sit and do the laundry.
You had to go down to you had to schlep water. I'm pushing a button.
Yeah, and modern time.
We are expected to have our clothes clean in different ways. So we have to think about how we do things. I don't think that pushing the button.
Today's modern days.
I don't think pushing the button on Chol HaMoed is a problem. On the flip side, we don't use electricity in our house on Shabbat. I don't actually believe electricity is Eish, which is the problem, but I do feel that it creates an environment. Okay. So it's really that's Shomer Shabbat.
That I understand.
Shamor Shabbat and Zachor Shabbat.
Okay.
So one is observing, I'm not building a fire in the fireplace, I'm not cooking, I'm not doing that. But the other is Zachor Yom HaShabbat, and that's creating that environment.
Okay, I can buy that.
No one's answering the phone. No one's on their iPad. No one's worrying about Facebook or texting or whatever.
I like that. Yeah, family time.
We have a lot of old-fashioned games. They're not digital. They're not electric. They don't take batteries, and it's really nice.
It's the quality. I can understand that.
Right. So we actually sit down and eat dinner together almost every night because it's led into the rest of the week.
Yeah.
And my oldest is turning 18, so that's I consider as long as I can get him to the table, that's a big deal.
That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Because a lot of Israelis I thought we consider ourselves Masortim because we do the Chagim. We do the dinners for the Chagim, we do the prayers, we do the Agadah, I don't know I think a lot of us do Shabbat, but as for the rest
a lot of people do Friday night.
Well, that's
they do
what
half
I meant.
of Shabbat.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
They skip the other half of Shabbat.
We do Friday night. But I don't know about the rest of it.
Well, I think that's why the movement has... All of our Kehillah in Israel have outreach programs. So you can join the Kehillah. You can be a member just like you join a synagogue here. But all of them have educational programs, outreach programs. So people who say, well, I'm Masorti, but there's Masorti with, for lack of a better terminology, a lowercase mem, and Masorti with a capital mem. So Masorti with a capital mem is the movement, and coming to the synagogue and learning and saying, okay, so even if I'm going to go shopping later, I'm going to be in shul, I'm going to be in Beit Knesset Shabbat morning. And then maybe we'll have Shabbat lunch, and then maybe we'll go shopping. Now, not that I, as a Masorti rabbi, would say, go shopping. I wouldn't. I would say, take some family time, turn off your cell phone. I know that's really hard for many Israelis. Don't go on the computer.
Yeah.
Observe Shabbat as much as you can. But
it's the quality also. Quality. It's a time to be with your family. But I have to ask you this. Mm-hmm. What made you want to be a rabbi? Did you just wake up one day and say, I want to be a rabbi?
Almost. I went to Brandeis University.
Because, hold on, before the show, she told me she was not brought up religious.
No, not at all.
So it's like almost like you got up one day.
We were anti-religious. Yes. We were, the terminology, shmutnikim.
Shmutnikim.
My father was Shomer HaTzair, very anti-religious.
Okay.
So I went to Hebrew school. My mother said the kids have to learn. So my brother and I went to Hebrew school. We had our B'nai Mitzvah. We had a great rabbi who got us involved. He made it fun. So we started coming to shul. I got involved in USY and youth group. And I wanted to work in the Jewish community. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to work in the Jewish community. I loved Judaism. As I grew into it and we started doing Leil Shabbat, my family also, we do Friday night, Kiddush. My father said, Friday night, you're at the table. Yep. You have friends, you want to bring friends, whoever. Yep. There could be 30 people, but you're at the table. Later, you can go to the movies, do whatever.
That's my rule.
That was it. And so
it's true.
I grew up that way. And a lot of times my friends, Jewish and not, would come to the synagogue with us when we would go Friday night. As Leil Shabbat in our home got bigger, we started going Saturday morning. Nice. But I got more and more involved, and I said, I want to work in the Jewish community. No idea. It was beyond my comprehension, even though I come from a strong matriarchal family, and my father was very pushed into, women can do anything. It just never occurred to me to be a rabbi, because I had no role models. And I was sitting around with friends at Brandeis University, because if I was going to study Judaic studies, Brandeis was the place to be. And we were saying, God, what are we going to do? I was a sociology major. I focused on the sociology of the North American Jewish community, but what am I going to do with sociology? I have to go to grad school. There's nothing to do. Or I could work at McDonald's. And they're in political science. What do you do with that? So we're all sitting around and talking, and some joking. And one of my friends, Brian, who is one of our suite mates, he said, Jen, and you should be a rabbi. And he came from a Reform background where women rabbis were more common at the time. And he said, you should be a rabbi. And I went, oh my God, that's what I'm going to do. I called my parents the next day and I said, guess what?
I'm becoming a rabbi.
I'm going to rabbinical school. My mother said, I'll believe that when I see it. Because I'd never spoken of it. Never, ever, ever. And I applied to JTS. I had some background. I had Jewish philosophy, Jewish history, those types of studies, but I'd never studied Talmud.
And you mean in those schools they actually accepted women to become
accepted. So the Jewish Theological Seminary, which is the conservative movement's seminary in New York, they started accepting women in 1985.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
A long time ago. It took a long time for enough women to go through for there to be real role models. I have on my wall, next to my diplomas, I have an award from USY Pilgrimage that says most likely to marry a rabbi, which I did.
Which you did.
I did, but
So I got to say, she's a rabbi and a rabbanit.
But my friends on the summer program gave it to me because they said, you can't be a rabbi. So we're giving you this award that you'll marry a rabbi and you'll teach that way. And it hangs next to my diplomas. And that same year, the same summer I got that was when the decision was made to let women into the seminary. So it's really significant to me.
That's exciting. Hold on a second. Val?
Yes?
Sorry, I'm going to go to the longest one. To the longer show. That's what, because I see you say that it's time out, but I have like 40 minutes.
Okay,
so
no problem.
Yeah, so just let me know when I'm done so I know. No, I know because he wasn't sure I said the time out.
Right.
Sorry, that's okay. Okay, so 1 second. So, I'm dying. 1 second. See? I feel it. Like I'm...
Yeah.
Tell me which direction you want me to take it, because I'm like,
So I'd like to talk
because I can sit and listen, but
right,
I want
I'd like to talk a little more about what the movement's doing in Israel, and also my work with Markaz and the WZO.
So why don't you just start, and then we're going to continue. Go.
So I decided to become a rabbi, but I never wanted a congregation. That's because of the politics and the living in a fishbowl. But I said to you earlier,
so you're a rabbi
still
without followers, okay?
Right. Well, a rabbi without official followers.
Official, okay.
So I still teach. I get to do all the good rabbi stuff.
Okay.
I get to teach. I do teach at our shul once a month. I get to speak. This year I went around to many of our synagogues here in Ontario, speaking about Merkaz, which is the other hat I wear. So I'm both the executive director for Canadian Foundation for Masorti Judaism, which raises awareness and fundraises for the Masorti movement in Israel.
I wanted to ask you, there's a lot of conservative synagogue here.
Right.
Is there a difference between one to another?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's still
many differences. And here in Toronto, or in the GTA, I should say, they run the gamut from the far left of the movement to the far right of the movement.
Oh,
and I visited most of them.
So where would the differences be?
So, for instance, one of the synagogues I spoke at this year was Beth Emeth, and I'm welcome there. I wear my talit. If I was there on Sunday morning, I would wear my tefillin, and they would welcome me, and people. There may be some who are not fully comfortable, but they would welcome me and be comfortable with me doing that.
Because I see them more conservative, actually, not really accepting a woman's rabbi.
Well, I think that people, they shy away from it. They're uncomfortable with it, not because of knowledge necessarily,
Nothing
but because
to do with
it's
you,
what,
but
it's what they're used to.
Yeah.
So I went to Beth Emeth.
It's basically change.
I went to and I spoke both in the main sanctuary and at their early minyan, and their Hashkama minyan, and I could speak there, and I gave the sermon for the day, but I can't have an aliyah. I don't count in the minyan. At my own shul, actually, I don't count in the minyan. We went there. They were transitioning from completely not egalitarian to becoming somewhat. Women now have aliyot. Women can lead certain parts of the service. But, I've led Hallel there. I've led Kabbalat Shabbat there. My daughter read Torah there. I've read Torah there, but we don't count in the minyan. And the congregation will decide when and if it chooses to change, and that's okay. But there I'm respected as a rabbi, and they respect my learning. I teach every month. So they're somewhere in the middle, and then you have Beit Ra'im is on the far left, or Beth David is now fully egalitarian. So you have these other synagogues where women can count in the minyan and participate in all aspects of the religious services. So Toronto is a really interesting place because it runs the gamut. But I'm still welcomed. I spoke at Adith Israel, they're on the right wing. I spoke at Beth Emeth, they're on the right wing. I spoke at my own shul, they're in the middle. I spoke at Agudith Israel in Ottawa, they're on the left. So we have the whole spectrum.
It's amazing that.
And it means that there's a place for everybody.
It's amazing. I was telling her, I'm going to repeat my story. I was telling her a story that, me, I think I'm not going to say most Israelis, because the Israelis that I know are, I don't think we have a category where we put ourselves. I don't know what we are. I mean, I'm listening to you, and I always thought I was Masorti, but I guess, maybe I'm not. I don't know. I don't know what I am. But I remember going to California, where my niece had her bat mitzvah, and I never thought my brother was Reformed, but we went into their synagogue, and I guess at that time it was maybe a Reformed or very conservative, because there was no woman rabbi. Oh yes, there was a woman and a man rabbi, and the girls wore talit, and they were on the podium. And then I remember I was telling you, which I found really strange. The rabbi came down to all the members, and he was like singing and clapping, and he was like just going at it. I felt like I was in some kind of a church, I was taken back because I wasn't used to.
Right.
And then my father was sitting beside me, who came from a religious home and was more conservative than I guess
Right.
what I was. And he just said to me, I'll never forget it, and he said to me that, at least they're doing something. At least
Exactly.
they belong to something. Doesn't matter which way they're doing it. And from that day, I sort of started looking at things differently. And you're right, he's right. There's, it doesn't matter how you do it. This is your way of interpreting. This is your way of doing it. But we're all Jews. We're all the same. We should all accept one another. Period.
Absolutely. So I think,
and that's what we're doing this.
I'm conservative. I know where I fit. The way I interpret Jewish law fits with the conservative movement. But I said before, not everyone who comes to our shul is fully observant. They're not, even though conservative movement says halakha is binding.
But who says I have to belong to a stream?
Well, absolutely.
Who says I have to be a
you have to find where you're comfortable.
I'm very
There
comfortable.
are many people who belong to Orthodox synagogues who are not Orthodox, but that's where they like to pray. Or people join, I used to say people affiliate for all sorts of reasons. I like that rabbi. He or she is good when I speak to that person. Or I like the way that rabbi speaks. Or I like that cantor's voice. Maybe I like this Hebrew school. Maybe my friends are here.
Okay.
Maybe it's around the corner.
Yeah.
The carpool was there. Whatever reason, I believe that people should find a shul, get involved,
belong to something,
come out. We have one congregant. She, the past year, made a decision and a commitment. She's going to come to services Shabbat morning, and she's having the best time. She said, she'd been before to say Kaddish or at different times. For the Chagim, maybe she'd come for Yisker, and she said now she comes every week, and when she comes in, everyone smiles. Everyone greets her by name. I mean, people smile whenever you come in.
So she belongs.
She belongs, and she has a place, and that's really what the synagogue is. It's the center of your community, and you know that you have a place. You get into it what you put into it. You get out of it what you put into it.
You mentioned Kaddish. So how, as a woman rabbi, do you do Kaddish?
Sure.
Really?
Absolutely.
This is amazing. I'm so excited. This is something new for me, and I'm actually very proud of you because I think it's wonderful, because it must not have been that easy for you to get up one day and say, it's.
You have to be used to people. You have to be willing to have people look at you funny.
Yeah.
There are many things, and I'm come from a background of strong women, and I married into a family with strong women, and that's great. But it doesn't make it easier to be the one that everyone's looking at, and so, I know from my daughter, being one of the very few who wears tefillin, that she didn't want to wear them at school, and she didn't want to wear them at camp. And I know that when she went to camp, she didn't wear them because she had them, but she didn't wear them. A classmate of hers who was also at camp with her, she celebrated her bat mitzvah at camp, put on tefillin that morning, and then when her parents went home, that was it. She was done, because it's hard when you're 12, 13 years old to be the one that everyone's looking at. But they made a pact this year that during the week, when the one day a week, the whole school has tefillot together. So they made a pact, you bring your tefillin, I'll bring my tefillin, and we'll back each other up. And that's great. But I've had, for me it was personal. I wasn't doing it, I hadn't really thought about the role model aspect of it. And I wasn't doing it to say, look, I can wear talit. I was doing it because it was important to me, it was meaningful to me. And it was only later that I realized the influence I had on other people, friends from my home shul, my parents' shul. They said, we talked about you every Friday night at the dinner table. And they have 4 girls who now, one is dati, one is really chiloni, and the other 2 are somewhere in the middle. And they used to talk about what I was doing, and I was going to rabbinical school, or I was wearing talit, and what did they think about it? What did the girls think about it? And it sparked conversation, and it helped them find their places.
It's a change. You like the women that are making the change in our society. Because hold on, sorry Val, I'm sorry. I'm drying out here. Sorry about that. You're actually the woman that everybody's going to follow, like you're making the change.
Right.
You and I don't know. I have no idea how many women rabbis are in Toronto. Let's say, I'm just starting to find out.
There are a number of us. I don't know the exact number.
Yeah, I'm just starting to find out. There's a few.
And I think there's more than a few. There's more than 3 or 4, but I don't know really how many there are. There are also a lot. There are Chazaniyot.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Or there are cantorial soloists.
Chazanit, I guess.
Chazanit would be one.
I don't know.
So Chazaniyot, I guess, would be many. I'm not sure how to pluralize that.
This is a new term.
But there are also cantorial soloists who are women who maybe they don't have the title, but they're working in that position. And so it ends up being, we could be a group of 25, 30 women.
So what do you see in the next 30 years for us women in the religious aspect? You think it's going to grow?
I do think it's going to grow. Okay. I think that just like women's roles have changed and opened in secular society, that's happening across the board in Jewish society. So we're going to see more women doing more things. That's why you're seeing women who they're not being called rabbis, but they're acting as rabbis. Maybe they're halachic, experts in the Orthodox movement. They have different titles. They're coming up with different ways to say, oh, well, you'll do the same thing. And what's really my job as a rabbi? I'm a teacher, and as I'm supposed to be a general expert on Judaism and on Jewish law, and then some people become individual experts. Maybe become a Masader Gitin. Maybe you become someone who specializes in conversion. Maybe you become someone who specializes in kashrut. But you don't have to be counted in the minyan to be a rabbi.
Do you know what I think? Mm-hmm. I think it's going to take another maybe 1 or 2 generations
quite possible.
Before they will allow us, and I'm saying it allow us, because that's what it is, to become rabbis, or to become, as a woman, to be participating in all,
in all aspects. And I think in Israel, where
it's the way we're going to teach our children, it's our boys, the way we teach our sons.
Our sons have to grow up and see, and we need those role models. Again, that's what it comes down to. I needed Brian, who had a woman role model, to say to me, oh, you could do this, because I didn't have that role model. That's significant.
But unfortunately, the other side of our religion, there are some men that are,
well, we're seeing that, especially in Israel,
and holding on to.
Right. We have, Women of the Wall have a Rosh Chodesh Minyan every month, and this past one for Adar, the men were throwing snowballs from the men's side of the Kotel, and there, Women of the Wall, which runs the gamut of women from all of the movements, there are secular women who want them to have the right to pray there and so participate. There are.
What about the Kotel? The Kotel is open for all of us.
Right, but they can't have a women's minyan with a Torah at the Kotel. Okay. So they have a special minyan once a month, and they go. And there's been a lot of issues with that. And there are Reform women who participate, and there are conservative women, and there are Orthodox women who participate in this minyan, and they have a shlichot tzibur, and they have a Torah. And they're not always allowed to read the Torah. Sometimes security steps in, but they're there. But there's the ultra-Orthodox who have snowballs or nothing. I mean, they've hurled other things, but who have done that. Now,
one of the throw things at you.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's actually at the Kotel, which to me is, like, if you're there to pray on your side, just pray.
Yeah, it's not their culture. Right. It's our culture. It belongs to all of us.
The women's section is for women.
All of us.
And the men's section is for men.
Doesn't matter what stream you are.
The Kotel is for everybody.
It's not theirs. Yeah.
So, now there's a new section. Actually, it's not now. The Masorti movement in Israel has been administering this section of the Kotel since,
I was just there
for 15 years. So if you were, the goal is to raise it and to make it part of the main plaza. But if you were to walk past the areas to pray, go out of security, you can go
Oh, where the
You can go when there's
stairs?
there's stairs down, and it's where it's been excavated.
Yes.
It's actually a lovely place to pray. There are still people who say, well, that's not really the Kotel. I'm like, well, really, though, it's just a big wall. You know, there's a space in the Arab quarter where a little piece of the Kotel is exposed. People pray there. It's one wall. The whole thing belongs to all of us.
Absolutely.
And now we have a place where you can go. One of my favorite pictures from our trip last summer is my 3 children standing at the Kotel together. So we went down to the Robinson's Arch area.
Oh, I see.
And my son, my oldest son, is expounding on something. I don't know. He's probably telling them something about the history of the place. And he's talking, and his brother and sister have their hands on the Kotel. And I love that they can stand there together. You know, my daughter was very shaken by the women who rush over and insist you put a skirt on as soon as you walk in. We had skirts, we just didn't have a chance to put them on.
They don't do that. I mean, I was just there. They didn't do it to me. I didn't see anybody.
You know, interestingly, they didn't come to me.
I was just there.
They didn't come to me as an adult, but they went to my daughter.
Oh.
And I think that she, you know, they felt that they could force her, and she was really shaken by them. And it really upset her, and it's really a shame because it made the Kotel is now a place where she had her first experience was a negative experience.
Oh, no.
Which is really, really a shame. So that's why, you know, that's why I do the other half of my work, the Merkaz half, and that's working with the WZO, the World Zionist Organization, and saying we need influence because the WZO influences what happens at the Kotel. You know, Natan Sharansky is working. He's got to work with everyone. He's got to work with the Waqf. He's got to work with the Department of Antiquities. He's got to work with the religious parties. It's not a job I would want, but I respect him for it. I thank God for him. But he wants to see the security for the Kotel moved further out and a platform raised so that it's all on the same level. So you have different sections, and you can say, I'm going to daven here, I'm going to daven there, I'm going to go put my note in over there, or I'm going to pray wherever I feel comfortable praying, because the Kotel is a place for all Jews. No one party or one group gets to say, you can't do that here. So why should they be saying, you can't have that minyan here, or you can't go and see your son?
Well, the only reason they are saying it is because nobody else is telling them you cannot say it. So right now they're getting away with it.
Right. So that's the WZO and JAFI, the Jewish Agency for Israel, they're working to say things have to change. And yes, we need to see change in the government, but legally, you know, we're certainly in Canada, we have legal restrictions on influencing foreign governments. So there's only so much we can do from here. And individuals can obviously write letters and do things, but as organizations, we can't. But we can work within the World Zionist Organization.
I have your website and your information on the screen. So if anybody wants to, you know, speak to Rabbi Jennifer, learn some more.
I'm happy to talk for hours.
Yes.
I'm very passionate about it.
Listen, I'm so happy you came. She's like, you're the first one in our programs for, you know, different stream for Judaism, and I'm so happy you came. I'm so proud of you. Good for you. Empowering women. I think it's fantastic. It doesn't matter what you believe in. It doesn't matter what you practice at home, you know, and what synagogue you go to. You know what? At the end of the day, we're all Jews. We're all one. We're all the same. And we should all just love and respect one another. And I'm saying it with full sincerity. And I really, really thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us. And, you know, hopefully she'll come back and tell us some more.
I would be thrilled.
And I will say goodbye to you, and we'll see you next week. אז תודה רבה לכם ולהתראות בשבוע הבא.